Let's talk about Tron Legacy. I can't just watch a movie because I'm spiritual. So everything is everything. And on very psychic days, apparently my spiritual team likes to just pull me out of the movie and into something else that could happen, and then give me a message with tarot cards and then dump me back in the movie. So that's how we ended up here. Spirituality is fun. In case you've never seen Tron Legacy, I will go ahead and give you a quick synopsis, but truly this is probably not the video you want to watch if you know you're going to watch it in the future, because there will absolutely be spoilers. I highly recommend that you go watch the movie and then come back if you know it's a movie you want to see. It was actually really good. I really enjoyed it. That being said, let me give you a synopsis of the movie. So, in Tron Legacy, a man by the name of Kevin Flynn designs a video game, and he is able to insert himself into this game through some sort of quantum physics. He, of course, because of Murphy's Law, he ends up getting stuck there and is presumably there forever until his son, Sam Flynn, ends up entering the same game over a decade later. So, of course, father and son eventually reunite, and then they have to find a way out of the video game reality, but then they also are simultaneously trying to ensure that the video game reality is left okay, because yeah, there's a chance that it could be totally overrun and turned into something quite dark. So that's the synopsis. Let's talk about this specific scene right here, because this is the scene that took me to a whole other realm, for lack of a better word.
I'm not your father, Sam.
Yep, you're right. It's just a 2-second scene. It doesn't matter. It had an effect, okay? So right when I was watching that scene, the way that it came through to me, it was almost as if Spirit wanted me to see it as though Kevin Flynn was speaking those words to his son, almost as if Kevin Flynn was disowning his son. And I think that's important, because what I got with that sort of interpretation of it was the Three of Wands and the Devil card. These are not cards that I shuffled. This is literally what I saw in my head while I was watching the movie. And then I was dropped back into the movie like nothing had ever happened. So, you know. Anyway, I guess you could say that Clue, who Sam Flynn was talking to in this scene, is, in a sense, Kevin Flynn. As we go on and watch the movie, we learn that Clue was programmed in Kevin's image to create the perfect world.
You will create the perfect system. I will create the perfect system.
So basically, Clue looks exactly like Kevin, and he has all of the knowledge of how to create a perfect world, right? So that's like 2 wands right there. What he is missing, the 3rd wand, is Kevin Flynn's life experience. And life experience is not something to take lightly, because it impacts what you end up becoming. And so if you think of Clue, which is kind of represented by the devil here, we will get to this. But if you think of Clue as a part of Kevin, like think, even though this isn't how it was depicted in the movie, imagine that Clue is living within Kevin. There was a very distinct message of this is what you become when you try to shun parts of yourself, or when you try to cut off, ignore, disregard different parts of yourself. This is what you become. And that was really interesting to me, because in the tech community, in the space of like software development, there are these things called daemons, Daemons, I believe. And they are basically these little bots that run in the background. So it's like these little things that are active without you having to click or press anything on your keyboard. It's like it's automatically running. So for example, in your Microsoft Outlook at work, for example, you have your email, and you know, you will delete things occasionally, and then you notice if you go to your deleted files that they probably don't go back as far as you've been there. So I've been at my company going on 8 years. I don't have 8 years of deleted emails in there. Like, it gets filtered out periodically. Those things that are filtering that out without me having to empty the deleted files folder, yeah, those things are called daemons, and they're just working. They're just doing it because that's what they're programmed to do, right? Flow with me. Imagine that you are a system, you are an operating system, you are a software program, and you have these different fragments living within you that are operating in certain ways for different reasons, right? So let's just say as a kid, you were probably very honest and very blunt. A lot of kids are. And you said something that hurt your aunt's feelings one day, and then you learn, like, oh, maybe I should keep my mouth shut because me talking and saying what I'm observing doesn't always pan out very well. It doesn't always affect people very well, and then they end up mad at me and blah, blah, blah. And then that becomes a little fragment within you that wants to speak, but is like, speaking isn't really safe for me or for other people, right? Just an example. And so you have a lot of these. You have a lot of these little things in you that are like not being given space. I'm not going to say right now. By the way, I'm not trying to project this onto you, to be clear. But this is kind of the human experience. This is the human game of life, is that, you know, you come to earth with these big visions and big plans, and then from the second you're born, you're being programmed with ways that you should behave, ways that you should show up based off of who you are, how you look, where you're from, your age, your race, your gender, etc. Like, it's so much. And it's like you're being bombarded with that all at once. And so you end up with a lot of these, actually. I've been actively in my spiritual journey for like 4 or 5 years now, and I'm still finding shadows. Like, how? Anyway, you end up with a lot of these, okay, over the course of a lifetime. And so these are clue. Basically, this is clue. You have a lot of little clues running within you that, you know, they have the knowledge, they show up in your image, they had the experience, whatever that experience may be. Going back to that example, your aunt, you accidentally hurt your aunt's feelings, and so you learn not to speak. They have that experience, but they don't have anything that happened before then, and they also don't have any of the life experience after that point, right? So a better word for this may be fragment. I like the word fragment because that's really what it feels like. It feels like this thing that kind of gets cut off from the future, and it also got cut off from the past. And it's kind of just existing in this one moment. It's funny. I'm being reminded of Soul, the movie. So we're kind of going to another movie real quick. But you remember when number 22, when it became a lost soul. And it was basically just wandering, and it had those negative thoughts constantly flowing in its mind in this dark cave, sandstorm situation. That is this fragment. It's like it's stuck on that one experience and that one thing, and it's creating behaviors based off of that one moment in time. And it's not really seeing any nuance either. It's like, and I guess it can't see nuance because it has that moment in time, and that's all it knows. It doesn't know your life experience before or after then, and that is Clue. Clue has the knowledge. He has Kevin's life experience. I mean, he has Kevin's image, but he does not have Kevin's life experience. And life experience is a very important wand. Coming back to this 3 of Wands, it's a very important wand to be missing. Because that gives you context, it gives you empathy, it gives you kind of a compass and a navigation system to move through life as you encounter those similar situations again. The thing about shadows is that you don't really get away from them, you know? Just because you choose to not look at them doesn't mean that they've gone anywhere. They're just not being seen by you. That doesn't mean they're not being seen. This is how you get into the realm of triggers when shadows get really strong, when they're really calling out for some attention, some healing. That's when you get into trigger territory. When you notice that you get angry at the drop of a hat and you can't even control like your speech or your volume. And that's when you know that something is a trigger for you and you kind of need to investigate it a little further, you know? But you never truly get away from it. So you can either be a conscious co-creator with these different fragments that live within you, or you can let them run rampant in the background of your operating system, just doing shit based off of a program that maybe you had given it at one point, but it doesn't actually serve you at this point. So going back to that example of you hurt your aunt's feelings. At that time, you decided, okay, I should probably not talk so much. I should probably not say everything that's on my mind. That may have served you for a certain point, you know? You may have made more friends because you were being more quiet. But after a certain point, it's like, these friends don't even really know who I am because I'm not even really speaking my mind. You see how something that is good and medicine at a certain point can become poison at another? So it's important to reintegrate these fragments because they're only meant to really work for you for a certain amount of time. And after that time is passed, they need to come back in so that they can continue getting context, so that they can continue living within you and actually getting the life experience. Otherwise, you run the risk of becoming Clue. I'm getting the phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And like, yeah, literally. Literally. Clue is so interesting. So we're going to talk about the other card that came up a little later in the movie for me. You really have to give Clue grace. Because when you think about how he was programmed, listen to the affirmation he was given.
You will create the perfect system. I will create the perfect system.
I will create the perfect world. And so when you start getting these little entities and beings manifesting out of nowhere. Whoops, my apologies, you guys. Editing Ari here. I just wanted to clarify this part because I started talking about the ISOs in the movie and I realized that I didn't even actually explain this while recording. So the ISOs are basically these beings in the game world that just kind of manifested themselves. They were not created by Clue. They weren't created by Kevin Flynn. They just kind of came about, right? And so that's what I'm talking about in this portion, is how Clue is seeing these beings, and he's basically like, well, if I didn't create them, they can't be perfect because the affirmation, the program says that I create the perfect system. And if it's not created by me, then I'm going to assume it's not perfect, right? So that's what I'm talking about here. So sorry. Explaining things is not my strong suit. I know this for a fact, but hopefully that makes a bit more sense. Back to the video. That you didn't create. The assumption is that they're not perfect. And then he could kind of choose where to go from there, but of course it goes straight to destruction. If I didn't create it and it's not perfect, then it must be destroyed, right? I guess that's how a computer program would run. But that brings me to the card that came up as well, which is the Two of Swords. And I don't know, I kind of feel like I want this to be a different video, so I'm going to end this part here for the Devil and the Three of Wands. We're going to call it a day. But you have to take all of you with you. The parts that you try to shun or hide or whatever, I get why. You know, as a human, I get why. I get why one would do that, because that's what you're taught to do from society. You know, there's always something that needs to be hidden or improved upon or blah, blah, blah. The spiritual message here, though, is that the spiritual message here, though, is that the strength is in you being whole. You can't go as far fragmented as you can go as a whole person. And also, the opportunities that are available to you aren't as numerous when you're fragmented as they are when you are a whole individual. So, that being said, I certainly hope that makes sense. You guys let me know how y'all like this series. I'm trying to bring tarot down, and if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. That's perfectly fine. Feel free to let me know how this energy is showing up for you, the Three of Wands with the Devil energy. I feel like I'm going to ask you guys a journal prompt question in case you want to journal about this. Wow. So I'm getting the concept of Sankofa, which is, I forget what part of Africa that comes from. Sorry, ancestors. So sorry. The concept is basically reach back and fetch it. It's a sense of going back to the past in order to move forward. And so with that being said, and then also with the Three of Wands and the Devil card here, the question that I'm getting is, like I said, I'm getting it a few different ways, but the one that's coming through clearest, what vision do you have for your life? And what do you need to pick back up in order to get there? What part of yourself do you need to shed light on? What part of yourself do you need to reintegrate in order to get back there? In order to get to that future vision, that future horizon that you want? It's interesting too, because in Tron Legacy, Kevin Flynn did end up integrating Clue into himself. Think about that. So what part of yourself do you need to integrate so that you can move forward to the future that you truly want? Not the one that society tells you to want. Not the one that, looks good to everybody else. But the future that you truly want for yourself. That you were already perfectly designed for. What do you need to pick back up in order to get there? Soul Searchers, this has been a journey. Anyway, I will talk to you guys in my next video. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you later, Soul Searchers.